So this one is an opinion video that's slightly different to what I would normally do, but I find it interesting nonetheless. Because I opened up my socials the other day to see that it's all kicked off in Australia, and that might actually affect some things on this side of the world with the way things get handled here too. And it's taken me a few days to figure out what's happened and put something together, but like I say, I hope it gets you thinking. Basically, what happened down in Australia is that Shane van Gisbergen, the current Supercars champion, made some comments that the media thought was out of line, and it's actually made a lot of people, even in something as partisan as Australian touring car racing, end up on the side of the Kiwi here. Now, as an aside here, this is a news item that got started in a touring car event, but this can apply to the likes of Formula 1 and other categories, because we did have this thing where drivers became more open through social media and that sort of thing, but now it seems like they're being put back on their leads and being told what they can and can't say. So a recap of what happened. Both of the Red Bull Camaros were disqualified from the opening round in Newcastle for a technical infringement. SVG came back to win the second race, but in the process of winning that race was involved in a bump and run moment with Chaz Mostert. Chaz seemed to have seen the funny side and called it cheeky, and SVG was not investigated, let alone penalised. Now it's a case of how the rulebook works where you're from. If he'd done that in Britain, he'd have been penalised because bump and run has been illegal for several years now, but the Australians saw nothing wrong with it, so it is what it is. I personally disagree with it because I'm used to a different rulebook, but like I say, it is what it is. Fair enough, it's a motor race, they went racing, etc, etc. In the press conference afterwards, SVG was tight-lipped when quizzed by Chad Neylan, repeating the same answer each time. We did our talking on the track today. When asked again, he said the same thing. We did our talking on track today. Chad then says, "No mate, it's a press conference, it's not even a difficult question, can you talk us through the incident at turn 9? Yeah, it happened. We did our talking on the track today." Following this, SVG was blasted by 5-time champion and pundit Mark Skaife, who said that Shane had a duty as a champion to answer the questions. Fellow pundit and champion Garth Tander said that there was no reason for Shane to do what he did, adding that he can be quite articulate when he wants to be. But the thing is, while Skaife and Tander were of the opinion that SVG was being like he was because he'd still got a bit of a hangover from the disqualification, it was because SVG has also come under a bit of media fire because of what he's been saying about the cars. So Supercars has recently switched to its Gen 3 spec cars. Gone are the Commodore and the Mustang that had a bubble roof, and in are these aggressive looking replacements. A Camaro and a Mustang that, well, actually looks like a Mustang. As much as I love and miss the Falcon, in the looks department, these things are, well, they're not something you'd ignore, let's put it that way. And SVG's opinions on these cars are out there in the wild, but the issue is that Shane has been keeping quite tight-lipped to avoid upsetting the management at Supercars. And this is where the crux of the video is. Should drivers be in that position where they feel like they can't say things because they don't want to cause a potential storm either online with the fans or with the suits in the offices? Because when you're asked for an opinion, you should be allowed to give that opinion. So long as you don't bring your sport into disrepute or say anything libelous or say anything that's designed to whip people into a frenzy, go for it. You know, baseless claims of attempted murder, that sort of thing. Because you can see this a lot in the modern world of racing. And you can see it in Formula 1 as well. The media-trained drivers that seem to give the vaguest of answers that can't be taken out of context. And I'll use the stereotypical NASCAR post-race interview, where the driver is talking and will basically give this pre-rehearsed scripted response, and then end it with, yeah, and of course it's great for the team, and also for Smith & Wesson and Texaco Fuels, for Budweiser Beer and for Mountain Dew, and, God bless our troops. Like I said, it's a stereotype. That's not to be taken seriously at all. I guess that's because the media can easily control a narrative, and this has been seen in real time in Formula 1 before. Bahrain, I think it was 2018 or something like that. Turn 1, Max hits Lewis. Nothing malicious, it's a turn 1 thing, concertina effect, nobody's wiped out, all good. After the race, the 3 podium drivers are in the cool-down room, they see the incident on a TV screen, and Lewis just goes, "Oh, he's such a dickhead." In the press conference, a Dutch member of the media called Lewis out on this remark, and Seb did the whole "if you put a microphone on a footballer, do you think everything he says will be nice" move, which is kind of the start of the Sebastian Vettel redemption arc. He got a lot of respect that day. And after hearing Jude Bellingham against Wales at the World Cup, no, as it turns out, I'm not going to repeat what he said because apparently my second cousin watches these videos and it's not suitable for his ears. I mean, it was funny though, in a black country accent as well. Chef's kiss. But back to Shane. Like I said, his criticisms of Gen 3 are out in the open. He criticised the fact that the tyres overheat when close to another car, the same issue the previous cars had, and he was making points that the cars are too hot on the inside as well, something that Supercars fixed for the races in Newcastle. He's been using his position as the champion to try and make the car better for everybody. Now, the cars play into his hands. He loves an on-edge car, but he's again using that position as the champion to try and make improvements so that every single driver gets out of their car and goes, bloody hell lads, this thing's a beast, when's the next race? So he is doing his so-called duty. So for the likes of Skaife and Tander to say that Shane has this duty as a champion to do what is basically pretend that the sport is rosy, and there are rumours and allegations that some of the top drivers in the category have been told to toe a line about Gen 3, but what's the point in that? What's the point in pretending the sport is perfect? You're just actively lying to your fans and the people that put money in the sport's pockets. As Russell Ingall wrote in his post about this whole thing, and as I said earlier, the media creates a narrative. There was this narrative trying to be created that SVG is not doing his duty of being the ambassador for the sport. At the risk of getting political, we're seeing something similar right now with the whole Fox News and Dominion lawsuit that is currently going through the courts. But I'll leave a link to Russell's post in the description because it's quite long-winded and he does have some points, such as, if Supercars has a legitimate issue, take Shane to one side and tell him, yeah, okay, we hear what you say, but just don't say it in public, please, so that media and social media explosions don't happen. But I know that there are a lot of people who love it when drivers give an opinion and are themselves. I refer you to my favourite exhibit with this sort of thing, Jason Plato. At Alton Park in 2011 or so, he was gifted a win when Matt Neal crashed into his own teammate at the final corner on the final lap, and in the post-race interview, he's off on one about the Hondas being far too quick with their turbo engines, and he's having to drive above what his car can do to keep up with them, because Toka was in a transitional phase with the touring cars that were phasing out the old cars and bringing in the NGTC cars, and there was little to no BOP at that point. I think he had something similar to say about the Honda Integra that Dynamics had in 2005. But they asked JP what he thought. He gave an opinion. There was no pre-rehearsed thing, it was all in the moment while the emotion was still raw, much like Lewis Hamilton's comment at Bahrain, and he gave his opinion in that particular moment that the Hondas were too quick, even though Plato had won the first two races of the season at Brands Hatch. But either way, at another point in that season he was giving a similar interview, and he wasn't standing there with Louise Goodman in the pit lane at Thruxton pretending everything was fine, because things weren't fine, in his opinion. And with Shane, it's a case of, well, I've said this, it's bitten me in the arse, so I won't say anything anymore. It has to be said here that Skaife has made his own comments to clear things up, saying things to the effect of, hang on, when I compliment him you say I'm a Red Bull fan, or, of course I would say that I was a Holden guy, or I'm an SVG bootlicker, and now I've criticised him, it's too much? He added that he tried to do this in the most balanced way possible, and that his comments were that he believed he should have given an answer, even if he didn't want to, and what his expectations are as the champion. But would Multi-21 have been as brilliant as it was if Mark Webber had just stayed silent in the press conference? Because he said Seb would be protected by management, it gave it that extra little bit. See also when he slammed the water glass down on the table at Silverstone in 2010. But when the top driver in your category, and dare I say one of the best drivers in the world right now, is stood there going, well, what's the point in me saying anything because it won't be what you want me to say, you're potentially running into trouble. Similarly, the FIA came out about a month or so ago putting in rules dictating what drivers can and can't say, with Lando Norris saying that there needs to be some clarity on it all because freedom of speech is what defines people and what makes us human. So in effect, we should allow the drivers to be what they are, human beings. But I guess with so much money and sponsors involved with the sport, the teams are going to be thinking, I mean, this is great, however, and then the driver is going to be in a press conference given a question by a broadcaster that they'd love to get an opinion on, and then get given a robotic answer that they could just translate to no comment. And then management within the sports commercial department or PR department is going, our drivers are so boring, at least in NASCAR they punch each other. But what do you think? Should drivers be given free rein of what they say, even if it upsets management? or do they need to be put on the lead and given strict guidelines? Or is it just a balancing act that you can't get an answer with that suits everybody? Such is the way with a free society, in that not everybody is going to be satisfied. Leave any opinions in the comment section and get a discussion going. And while heading down to comment, get the like button hit, and for more stuff like this, subscribe and Derek ringer the bell so you never miss out on a future video. Massive thanks as ever to the folk at Patreon for the continued support, and if you want to help out with image purchases or keeping things running around here, you can help out by hitting the link in the description, where there's also a link to Russell Ingall's Facebook post, SVG's Facebook post, my F1 affiliate store link, and also my socials. Lots of stuff in the description this time, or there's super thanks down there too if you just want to do a one-off tip. So until next time, I've been AdmiralLaWind, have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you all again soon for another video. Goodbye.